If I had to go look back at how it started out, I think they started off with sort of 6 analysts, I think, and a lot of time spent on understanding this market systems approach, and a lot of the analyst time, I think, in the field, talking to market actors, trying to understand how the sectors worked and how they could actually develop these sector strategies. So I think, particularly for the first year, I think that was what really took up a majority of their time, and that's what I sort of saw was the real focus, was to get out some of these key strategies to shape the program going forward. So from our side, it was there was a lot of work in terms of actual interventions on the ground. We didn't see that many, so it was also a challenge reporting. And we had to sort of, I guess we had to have, once again, good faith in terms of understanding the way the program was going to be rolled out. If you fast forward, I'd say probably over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen the business analyst numbers double. I think there's 13 now, and they're going through another recruitment round. The diversity of the analysts has definitely added a richness to the office. I think the culture of, questioning has become more evident. I think when I first came to the office, it was very quiet. I think people were very busy, and I thought that was normal. But I remember when I was talking to Shiraz, he was like, "No, there should be a lot more chatter." And I think now you see that a lot more. I think in the Pacific, we've got this culture of, it's very difficult to ask a lot of questions when you meet someone for the first time. So I think the challenge for a lot of the analysts, particularly the first group, was doing a lot of this private sector consultation with people that didn't have a lot of time, that were really busy, and asking them a whole bunch of questions where the private sector CEO or chief executive couldn't see any return. Like they were, so why am I answering all these questions? You should know more about this. So, when I've gone to see a lot of them, I'll be honest, I think a lot of times the first impressions of MDF analysts in some cases weren't that positive. Why is this young person asking me all these questions, about pineapple or something like that? But I think what has made MDF different is this commitment to relationship building. So it's the fact that the same analysts were coming back a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time. So I think what I've seen with a lot of the private sector partners is that's when they realized that they were kind of in it for the long haul, and that the questions they were asking were leading them somewhere. So I think in the past, when we used to fly in a lot of consultants, I think the private sector partners would always feel that they're being talked to, they weren't really being listened to. So I think with the younger analysts, they felt that they were in a sort of position of power, so they were schooling them up, I guess, on how business works and what their problems were. So I think that has been, I think it's taken a while to develop, but if you talk to the partners on the ground now, they're very appreciative that they have this ongoing relationship with analysts at MDF. So this idea that they can actually work with someone to figure something out, a business problem, a business challenge, I think that has been a big difference. And it's actually, if you talk about inclusive growth, I feel we're now reaching out to a lot more of those private sector partners that didn't have all the answers, have great ideas, but they needed someone to work it through with them. And I think that's where MDF has really sort of separated itself out or made itself a bit different from some of the programs of the past. From what I've seen in MDF, I think there is a push, particularly from management, for staff to be proactive. Not so much top-down. I see a lot of they reward initiative, and I think that's a credit to Shiraz. I think he tries to get his team out of their comfort zone. Tells them if there's something that you want to know, go ahead and ask those questions or go and see that partner. So they've become a lot better at it. And if you look at the amount of time they spend in the field now, the analysts, it's a testament to how much they are talking to partners, trying to understand their interventions better, the sectors better. So I think that's really come out more in the last sort of 2 years. Having the number of local analysts out in the field regularly talking to the private sector has allowed them to develop quite a diverse portfolio, and actually reach a lot of the market players and the private sector partners that probably in the past we wouldn't have reached. I think what really helped me a lot was AusAid at the time invested quite heavily in getting program managers to understand the approach first. So I was fortunate enough to have a short attachment with CAVAC in Cambodia, and to see how a fully functional M4P office works, but also to have a chance to talk to the managers there and the local staff to get a sense of how things evolved. So I guess when MDF started, as the program manager, I had good understanding that it wasn't something that was going to happen in 6 months or even in a year. I think the challenge that we had was how we convey that message to management and to sort of the broader Canberra as well as the local stakeholders. So what we did was we spent a lot of time talking about the sector strategies. We spent a lot of time talking about the consultation with the private sector, testing the strategies, and it was about trying to build, I think, a solid base going forward. The second year became a bit easier when we were able to talk about interventions and sort of work we were doing. We had some low-hanging fruit. We had a few projects that AusAid at the time weren't sure about or didn't know how to take forward. I mean, a great example for that is the agricultural lime. We'd been working on soil fertility for probably the last 3 years, and it was an obvious problem, but no one had a solution. So it was something that we passed over to MDF very early on. They were able to look at it, I guess from a different angle, and find a local partner, Standard concrete producer who you'd never think would be involved in agriculture, but was able to show them the business case for getting involved in agricultural lime. So I think that in itself showed us that there was a lot of value in the way MDF worked in terms of building sustainable solutions. Yeah, it's great. I think Shiraz and I meet fortnightly, and I sort of have I'd say a somewhat intimate knowledge now of all the interventions. So our discussions really are around where things are, where there are problem areas or where we think interventions may be slow. So, from a program manager's perspective, it's allowed me to input, and provide some of my local knowledge to try and help interventions in terms of thinking around some of the interventions, engagement with other donor agencies, engagement with other AusAid programs. So I think we've got quite a healthy relationship now, and I mean, I think up to the DCD audit, I think I'd been sort of a big champion for the M&E around and why it was different. And I think after the audit now we are in a position to tell the story a lot better and to get management buy-in. I think that DCD audit really brings a lot of credibility to the results. So yeah, that's definitely made my job a lot easier. So a lot of the interventions are well thought out, and even the private sector partners may have a solution, but unless you have a robust M&E around it, if it goes wrong, you don't really know where to fix it. So I think that's something that MDF has brought, and it's something that in the past our private sector interventions were basically measuring sort of end of like either jobs or even business activity, but we never really looked very closely at how it all happened. So MDF brings that with them, and that's sort of taken the market analysis to another level, and it's I guess as program managers it's forced us to sort of understand the way MDF works, so that we when we get results we also understand there is a logic behind every intervention, and when things go wrong we can go back to that logic to see how it can be fixed. I think if you look at MDF and you look at innovation, I mean, we just talked about agricultural lime. First time agricultural lime's been produced locally. First time that we've produced a kava-based relaxation drink. First time we've had a chocolate factory in Fiji. You know, these are all firsts for Fiji. So to actually be there, sort of at that at the coal phase, I think is quite exciting.